Good morning, my name is Anna, and this morning you are joining me on Wake Up Well, and we're continuing our theme on Blessed are the Merciful. And we're going to be journeying together through a passage today in Deuteronomy chapter 10. And in Deuteronomy, we see Moses giving a massive pep talk to the Israelites. They've been wandering around in the wilderness for 40 years, waiting for a generation to die off. And they're about to step forward into the promised land. And before Moses dies, he gives this massive speech, reminding them where they've come from, reminding them who God is, what he has done amongst them, his promises for the future, but also the warnings that come with that. And so here we pick up his pep talk in chapter 10, verse 14. And so he's speaking to the Israelites, and he says this: "To the Lord your God belongs the heavens, even the highest heavens, the earth and everything in it. Yet the Lord set his affection on your ancestors and loved them, and he chose you, their descendants, above all the nations as it is today." He's reminding them that God is the most powerful. He is the creator of the universe. He's the creator of the earth. He could have picked any nation to fulfill his plan for the redemption of humanity and bringing us back into relationship with God. He could have chosen anybody. He could have chosen the biggest, the most powerful, the most numerous. And interestingly, in chapter 7 of Deuteronomy, Moses describes Israel as not being the most numerous. He actually describes them as the fewest of all peoples. In other words, they wouldn't have been the people that you picked to be first on your football team. Like, they would have probably been the last in line. But actually, God picked them and he chose them. He could have chosen anyone, but he chose them. They didn't deserve it. He's reminding them, you were the weakest, you were the fewest of all peoples, but yet God chose you and chose to pour his love out and to use you. So then in verse 16 he says, "Circumcise your hearts, therefore, and do not be stiff-necked any longer." This term stiff-necked is also kind of like saying, don't be proud. It would be so easy, wouldn't it? And they've seen God do amazing things. They've seen him part the seas. They've seen him take on the Egyptians on their behalf. And it would be so easy for pride to come in and say, well, yeah, that's because we're awesome. That's because, he loves us. We're great. But actually, he's reminding and rebuking, quick to rebuke them and saying, don't be stiff-necked. Don't be proud. Where you are and you're standing with God right now has nothing to do with you and everything to do with him and his love and his grace and his mercy. Verse 17, "For the Lord your God is God of gods and Lord of lords, the great God, mighty and awesome, who shows no partiality and accepts no bribes." He's painting that picture again. Your God is the most powerful. He's the one who is above all things. But yet, he carries on, he says, "Yet he is the one who defends the cause of the fatherless and the widow, and loves the foreigner residing among you, giving them food and clothing." He's reminding them that you, Israel, as a nation, you were the weakest. You were seen by those around you as probably not having it all together, but yet God chose to pour his love out on you. And now within your community, he chooses to pour his love out on the weakest, those who are seen by the rest of society as not necessarily having it all together and not having anything to give. And he chooses them and wants to pour his love out onto those people. He has a deep love for those who can give nothing back to him. And then verse 19 he says this, "And you are to love those foreigners, for you yourselves were foreigners in Egypt." See, it's God's nature to love and pour out his heart of love onto the poor and the weaker of those who are around. And he expects that nature to be reflected in his people and in us. And I know this is about Israel, but in Romans it says that when we believe in Jesus, we are grafted in to Israel. We are grafted into the people that he has chosen to pour his love out and chosen to dwell in and amongst. And so that applies to us, that actually we are called to reflect his nature. So what does this passage have to do with mercy? Well, it's a reminder that our relationship and standing with God has nothing to do with us and everything to do with him. We were dead in our sin until God rocked up and saved us. He has done more for us than we could ever comprehend. And sometimes we lose track of that and we become proud and we think we can do things in our own strength. But he is quick to rebuke us in his beautiful, lovely way and say, actually, it's got nothing to do with you and everything to do with me. and remember what I have done in your life. Remember what I have saved you from. There's that beautiful story in the New Testament where the sinful woman comes in and pours her perfume all over Jesus. And Jesus says what she has done will be spoken about all over the world, because those who have been forgiven much love much. And we're called to reflect the image and nature of Jesus. The Beatitudes, blessed are the merciful, for they will receive mercy, is a picture of Jesus. He is mercy and he lives in us. And as we yield to him, that mercy should be that fragrant outpouring offering that flows out of our life onto the most broken, onto the most hurting, and to the most poor. Because they're the ones who he loves so dearly. He loves all of us, but he just has such a heart for the poor and the broken and those who are considered weak by the rest of the world, because he loves to take them and use the weakest things of the world to shame the wise. And as we follow him and as we yield to him, it will always lead us to pour out that mercy that we have received from him into the lives of those that we meet and encounter every day.